Andy Good from the Good Life YouTube channel, and today we continue to learn about the different types of bees at the Blount County Bee Association monthly meeting.
Caucasian bees are, they originated in the Caucasus between the Black and the Caspian Seas. That's this area right here. They're very gentle, they swarm infrequently, they have the longest proboscis of any of the western bees, the longest, so they can reach further into a flower, into a longer tube flower, and get the pollen. So that would be a good thing. And but they overwinter poorly. They're from that apparently a warmer region, but they overwintered poorly and build up slowly in the spring. And they are susceptible to the nosema, which is a disease of the intestines, and so that would not be a good thing. And they are heavy propolis users. So if you want propolis, if you want to sell propolis, this would be the one. This would be the one to get. But they're inclined to drifting and to robbing. Now the Russian bee, I think, probably is the one that has generated, as far as a breed, more interest than most any of the others. There are people experimenting with the Cordiolan, but I think Russian probably really generates a lot of interest because they are resistive to the mite, and it says they're a relative of the Cordiolan. But they were brought to the U.S. in '97 by the USDA, the Baton Rouge laboratory there, simply for the purpose of trying to develop something that would be resistant to varroa, because they have been living with varroa for over 150 years. And then in 2008, they released these queens and bees to some breeders who are Russian breeders. And there is a Russian breeder society, a Russian honeybee breeding association, who breeds Russian bees, and that's what they deal with. And they are interested in breeding Russian bees to Russian drones, keeping them all Russian, not a hybrid. However, you can some people do sell queens, Russian queens, that have been open bred to something other than a Russian drone, and therefore you have. If you buy a Russian queen, you may be if you're not buying it from a breeder, you're probably getting a hybrid. And that they are more than twice as resistant to varroa than other honeybees, and highly resistant to the tracheal mites. You don't hear too much about tracheal mites anymore. I think it's theorized that the medication that we use for varroa kills the tracheal mite as well, and that's probably the reason. But it used to be that was a problem. Supposedly they produce about the same amount of honey as the Italian bees, and but here it says that a lot of the, just like I mentioned, a lot of the, if you purchase a Russian queen, you're getting a hybrid unless you're buying it from a Russian breeder. A Russian breeder, you should be able to get a full-fledged. And this is from North Carolina State. Now they don't build their colonies up until food is available. They shut down the food rearing when it's not available. That's really a good thing, because that way they're not using up a lot of resources through the winter. And interesting, I don't know if this is good or bad, but they maintain active queen cells all through the season. You know, if we open up an Italian colony, we see queen cells in there, we say, uh-oh, they're about to swarm. Not so with the Russians. They keep queen cells there all year, all the season. But if you're thinking about getting a Russian queen and putting it into an Italian colony, it is a little bit difficult to do. There is a process to go through. It roughly is you have to separate the hive. So you have a hive that is two boxes. You separate them, keep the queen in the bottom box, the old queen, put the Russian in a cage in the top, and leave her there for 7 or 10 days, and then release her. And when she is accepted by those bees, then kill the old queen in the bottom and then put the hives back together. And so that's the recommended way to do that. So that sounds like a bit of a hassle to have to do. The Russians are more resistant to varroa and tracheal mite as well. And the brood rearing is only during times when there's available pollen, robbing is low, queen cells present most of the time. I don't know if that's an issue or what. Pollination skills, same as the Italians. Temperament. Here's the thing about the Russian bees that most people say. Their temperament is they are very defensive. Some people say they're not so defensive. Some others say, well, as a matter of fact, Cameron Jack, who is at the University of Florida, in their bee program there, I think I was quoting him, he said, they're made of snot. That's what he said. And so he's dealt with them a little bit. But other people say, and maybe it's just the differences in strains that they have there, but other people say they're not so terribly bad. So that's the thing about the Russians. They tend to be defensive, and that's the big hang up with them. And but they're working. They have a brood an organization that's working with them, and other folks are trying to cross them and get some desirable characteristic from them. The hybrids are some that have been some of the more popular ones. Of course, anybody can make a hybrid. You can do that. But the Buckfast is one that has been popular for a number of years, and they were developed in Europe by a monk in the Buckfast Abbey in Devon, England, and he was breeding to try to combat tracheal mites. And so the bees that he developed are resistant, and they're ready to withstand the cold conditions in Great Britain. So that might seem to be, that might think maybe they're not well suited for our area, and that may be true. I don't know anybody around here that has Buckfast. They produce a good honey crop, and they have good grooming behavior, which is good to reduce the prevalence of diseases, different kinds of diseases. Low swarming instinct, that's good. They produce little propolis, and they are gentle to moderately defensive. That sounds like that might be a little more defensive than Italians, and I don't know. That probably depends on who you ask. If you ever watch any of the videos from the University of Guelph, I always have trouble pronouncing it. It's in Ontario, Canada. Paul Kelly is over that bee program there, and he has made several videos. They have some really good training videos, but in the videos he is always out there, no short sleeve shirt, no gloves, shorts, no mat, no veil, no anything, and he is working, sitting on a chair, working with the bees, and he never gets stung. He never gets stung on the videos anyway. I'm sure he gets stung sometimes. But they sell Buckfast bees, and so this may be part of their marketing plan. I don't know, but I don't think, from what I've read, that Buckfast are so gentle that I want to be working them without a veil. The thing about the Buckfast bees, if they're just left to if they're breeding them back to a first Buckfast drone, if they're just allowed to reproduce open bred or whatever drones are out there, they tend, after about the second generation, to get really defensive. So that's a negative thing about them. So if you're going to deal with them, you need to always be getting new queens all the time, or else you're going to be getting some really defensive. Moderate in the spring. So the gentleness is one thing that we have identified as something we like. The Italian, now you see they're saying that the Carniolan is more gentle than the Italian. And that might be true and it might not be true, but we say that they're similar, at least similar. And the Buckfast, they're not even given that high a mark. And but the Russian is getting low marks on gentleness, and that's pretty well agrees with most everything that I have seen on them. And the spring buildup and excessive swarming sort of go together. The faster they build up in the spring, the more likely they are to swarm. And so you've got the Italian or good spring buildup, excessive swarming. Cornelian is very good in the spring buildup, but they are high. They build up fast in the spring, but that means they're more likely to swarm. The Caucasians are low buildup, and they're not likely to swarm, and the Russians are about the same as the Italians. Honey processing, well, they're all pretty good except for the Caucasian bees, but probably not. I probably might not be able to tell much difference in these except the Caucasian. The Italian one problem with them is heavy robbing, and the Cornelian is low robbing, but supposedly they are good comb builders. Minnesota hygienic bee is another one that's been pretty popular. It was bred specifically to take care of the varroa, and that's what they do pretty well. Social immunity, social immunity. What that is, it doesn't mean that the bee itself has immunity, but it means that the colony has immunity, and the way that happens is if the workers in there, the nurse bees, if they detect a larva that's diseased, they will pull it out. That's their hygienic behavior. They will pull it out and take it outside. So that keeps the whole hive from catching the disease. That is social immunity. And that's the way the Minnesota hygienic bee works. And it was developed by using AI. AI, yeah. That's not artificial intelligence. They were developed by the USDA and their breeding in their lab in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We saw the island earlier, and they were first called suppressed mite reproduction. But that's really not what they're doing. They're not really suppressing the mite reproduction. What they're doing is they are taking the diseased larvae out. The ones that have mites in them, they take them out of the hive, and the mites die. And so that's the reason they changed the name to varroa sensitive hygiene. Well, if you've got a varroa sensitive bee, what else do you have? You could have anything, right? They were bred to be sensitive for varroa, but they're not bred for anything else. So they might be gentle, they might not be gentle. They might be good honey producers, they might not be good honey producers. So the pole line VHS was developed to select for other desirable characteristics, other than just the varroa sensitive hygiene. And the way they did that was over a period of time, they took these varroa sensitive hygienes and went through the process. They carried them to California, and then through apple production, I think in New York, is that what it says, or does it say here yet? And then blueberries in Maine, and then the cranberries in Massachusetts. And then the ones that survived that process, out of those, the ones that were the best, they selected those to continue breeding. And every year they do the same thing. They continue to improve every year. And they are selected mostly for pollination, not so much for honey production. So that's if you're thinking about the pole line, it might not be good honey producers, but they would be good for pollination. You could also select for anything that you want to. You know, when you observe your hives, if you see some that are doing really well in the things that you like, that's the one that you would want to try to raise a queen from and use her to breed to carry on your holidays.